I watched my mother sign the scholarship refund check, my scholarship check, with my name forged in her perfect cursive, her manicured nails tapping the desk as she smiled at my stepsister Jessica. "This will cover your sorority dues and that trip to Cabo, honey," she cooed. "God knows you deserve it after all your hard work." Jessica, who had a 2.3 GPA and hadn't opened a textbook in months, squealed and threw her arms around Mom's neck. Neither of them noticed me standing in the doorway. Neither of them ever noticed me, but this time, I wasn't the same girl they'd steamrolled for 18 years. This time, I knew exactly what was coming. Because I'd lived this moment before, in my first life 3 months ago, the life where I'd discovered the theft too late, where I'd lost my state scholarship, where I'd been forced to drop out of community college and work 3 jobs just to survive. The life where, 5 years later, I'd collapsed from exhaustion in a restaurant kitchen, my heart giving out at 23. The life where I'd died believing I was worthless, just like they'd always told me. But something, fate, the universe, sheer cosmic anger, had given me a second chance. I'd woken up 6 months in the past, 2 days after my high school graduation, with every painful memory of my previous life burned into my consciousness. The foreknowledge was my weapon now, and this time I wasn't going to be their victim. This time I was going to let them hang themselves. "Oh, Mara." Mom's voice dripped with false sweetness as she finally noticed me. "We were just discussing Jessica's college expenses. You understand, don't you? She needs so much more than you do. Community college is so much cheaper after all." I smiled. A real smile. Not the broken, resigned grimace from my first life. "Of course, Mom. Whatever Jessica needs." The shock on their faces was almost worth everything I'd endured. Jessica's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Really? You're not going to whine about it?" "Why would I?" I shrugged, turning away. It's just money." Behind me, I heard Mom whisper to Jessica, "Maybe she's finally growing up." If they'd been paying attention, if they'd ever really seen me, they might have noticed the fire in my eyes. They might have wondered why I was so calm, but they never looked close enough to see anything beyond what they wanted to see, and that was going to be their downfall. The story of how I became the family ghost started when I was 7 years old, the day my father married Patricia Whitmore. My mother, my real mother, had died in a car accident when I was 5. For 2 years, it had been just Dad and me against the world. He'd been a good father then, attentive and loving, if distracted by grief. He'd braided my hair badly and burned breakfast and read me stories every night. Then Patricia walked into his life at a company mixer, bringing her 10-year-old daughter Jessica with her. Patricia was beautiful, charming, and ambitious. Everything my quiet, bookish father wasn't. Within 6 months, they were married. Within a year, I'd become invisible. It started small. Dad missing my piano recitals because Jessica had a soccer game. My birthday being postponed because Jessica wanted a pool party that same weekend. My clothes becoming hand-me-downs while Jessica got shopping sprees. But it got worse. So much worse. By the time I was 12, I was doing all the housework while Jessica was too delicate for chores. I was cooking dinner after school while Patricia took Jessica to spa days. My report cards, straight A's every semester, were met with indifference, while Jessica's C's were celebrated as really trying hard. When I was 14, my maternal grandmother died and left me a trust fund, $50,000 for college. Patricia convinced my father to let her manage it, promising it would be invested wisely. I found out in my first life that she'd drained it completely within 2 years, using it to pay for Jessica's private tennis lessons, her Sweet 16 party, and Patricia's plastic surgery. The money was gone before I even knew it existed. But the scholarship was different. The Illinois Scholars Grant was merit-based, awarded by the state, and it was in my name only. $15,000 paid directly to whatever state school I attended. I'd earned it with a 4.0 GPA, perfect test scores, and hundreds of hours of volunteer work. In my first life, I'd been naive enough to believe they couldn't touch it. I was wrong. Patricia had forged my signature on a refund request, claiming I was deferring enrollment. The money had been sent to our house as a check. She'd deposited it into her account and spent it within a week. By the time I'd discovered the theft, the money was gone, the deadline had passed, and I'd lost my spot at my state school. I'd tried to fight it. I'd gone to the police, but Patricia had documentation. Forged, but convincing. My father had backed her story, claiming I'd agreed to help Jessica. With no proof and no money for a lawyer, I'd been powerless. I dropped out, started working, and slowly, painfully, died inside long before my body gave out. But in this life, in this second chance, I'd spent my 2 days of foreknowledge preparing. I'd gone to the scholarship office and requested all communications be sent to a P.O. box I'd rented. I'd documented every interaction with my family. I'd set up a bank account they didn't know about. And I'd done something else, something that made my heart race with a mixture of terror and exhilaration every time I thought about it. I'd applied to Harvard. In my first life, I'd never even considered it. I'd believed Patricia's constant refrain that I wasn't smart enough, special enough, good enough for anywhere but community college. I'd internalized their view of me so completely that I'd never dreamed bigger. But those 5 years of my first life, as brutal as they were, had taught me something. I was smarter than I'd ever known. Working 3 jobs, I'd taught myself accounting, business management, and investment strategy. I'd discovered I had a gift for finance that went beyond anything I'd studied in high school. In the rare moments I'd had to myself, I'd taken online courses and aced them all. I'd been extraordinary, and no one, including myself, had known it. This time, I knew. And I'd spent my senior year not just maintaining my 4.0, but taking every AP test, winning every academic competition, and writing an essay about overcoming adversity that was so raw and honest, it had made my English teacher cry. I'd applied to Harvard on a whim, a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, I could escape. And 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks after my rebirth, 1 week before graduation, I'd gotten the acceptance letter. Not just acceptance, a full scholarship. Every penny paid. Room, board, tuition, and a living stipend. One of only 50 students nationwide to receive the Harvard Financial Aid Initiative's most prestigious grant. The letter was hidden in my P.O. box, along with all the documentation I'd need. I'd told no one. Not the school counselor, not my friends, and certainly not my family. Because I had a plan. A perfect, terrible, beautiful plan. I was going to let them steal the state scholarship. Let them think they'd won, that they'd successfully stolen my future again. Let them spend every penny while I smiled and pretended to accept my fate at community college. And then, 1 week before school started, I was going to reveal the truth. I was going to Harvard. I'd been going to Harvard all along, and they couldn't touch me. The month after graduation was a masterclass in performance art. I played my role perfectly, the defeated, compliant daughter who'd finally accepted her place at the bottom of the family hierarchy. I got a summer job at a local diner and handed over most of my paychecks to Patricia for household expenses, money she immediately spent on Jessica's wardrobe. I enrolled in community college classes, attending orientation with a forced smile, while Patricia and Jessica laughed about how appropriate it was for someone like me. Meanwhile, Jessica prepared for her freshman year at State University with all the ceremony of a royal coronation. The house was full of shopping bags, dorm decor, and excited chatter. My scholarship money, $15,000 that should have been mine, funded her entire first semester and then some. Patricia bought Jessica a new laptop, a new phone, designer clothes, and enough dorm accessories to furnish a small apartment. She hired a professional photographer for Jessica's senior portraits, even though Jessica had already graduated, just to post them on social media with captions about her brilliant daughter heading to college. My father, when he was home from his sales trips, nodded along to all of it. The few times I tried to catch his eye, hoping for some flicker of the man who'd once loved me, he looked away. He knew what they were doing. He'd always known. He just didn't care enough to stop it. But I'd stopped caring what he thought. I'd stopped caring what any of them thought. I was counting down the days. During this time, I used every spare moment to prepare for Harvard. I'd been in contact with my admissions counselor through my secret email account, finalizing my housing assignment and class schedule. I'd researched professors, read ahead in textbooks I'd ordered online, and connected with other incoming freshmen through the Accepted Students Forum. I'd also done something else. I'd documented everything. Every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every moment of abuse and neglect. I'd kept journals, taken screenshots, and saved recordings. In my first life, I'd had no evidence. In this life, I was building an ironclad case. Not for the police. I'd learned that lesson. They didn't care about family financial abuse, especially when the abuser was as charming as Patricia. No, my evidence was for something much more permanent: social media. Patricia lived for appearances. Her Instagram was a carefully curated fantasy of the perfect blended family, filled with staged photos and humble brags about Jessica's achievements. She had 15,000 followers, most of them women from her social circle who engaged in competitive motherhood through their posts. Her reputation was everything to her, and I was going to destroy it. But not yet. Not until the perfect moment. 3 days before Jessica left for college, Patricia threw her a going-away party that cost more than my entire high school education. The house was filled with Jessica's friends, Patricia's book club, and various neighbors who'd been subjected to months of bragging about Jessica's college acceptance. There was catered food, a DJ, and a photo booth with custom props. I was, of course, serving drinks. "Mara, be a dear and refill the wine glasses," Patricia ordered, not even looking at me as she held court with her friends. "And smile, for God's sake, you look so dour." I smiled and complied, weaving through the crowd with a bottle of Pinot Grigio. As I poured, I listened to the conversations around me. "Jessica is so brilliant," one woman gushed. "State U is lucky to have her." "We're just so proud," Patricia simpered. She worked so hard for this. We made sure she had every advantage: tutors, test prep, the works, unlike some children who seem content to aim low. She glanced at me as she said it. Several women followed her gaze, their eyes dismissive. "And what about your other daughter?" one woman asked, her tone making it clear she was asking out of politeness, not interest. "Mara, oh, she's going to community college. It's more her speed." Patricia's laugh was light and cruel. "She's not as academically gifted as Jessica, but we love her just the same." The lies were ties, so casual, so practiced, that I almost admired them. Almost. Jessica, across the room, caught my eye and smirked. She was wearing a designer dress that my scholarship money had paid for, her hair professionally styled, her makeup perfect. She looked like every privileged college freshman who'd never known a day of hardship. She looked like everything I was supposed to envy. Instead, I felt nothing but pity. She had no idea what was coming. That night, after the party, I lay in my small room, the converted storage space I'd been moved to when Jessica demanded the larger bedroom at age 12, and opened my laptop. I pulled up the Harvard student portal and looked at my housing assignment: Weld Hall, one of the historic freshman dorms in Harvard Yard. My roommate was a girl from California named Priya who'd already emailed me twice, excited to meet. In 1 week, I would be there. 1 week, I would be free. I could hardly breathe with the anticipation. Jessica left for State U on a Saturday morning with enough luggage to stock a small boutique. Patricia cried and took 1,000 photos. My father handed her a credit card for emergencies with a $5,000 limit. I hugged Jessica goodbye, and she tolerated it with obvious disdain. "Try not to embarrass me on social media," she whispered. "I don't need my new friends knowing I have a towny community college sister." "I'll do my best," I said sweetly. After they left, Patricia and Dad were driving Jessica the 3 hours to campus and staying for the weekend to help her settle in. I had the house to myself for the first time in years. I sat in the living room, surrounded by the evidence of their wealth and my poverty. And I laughed. Really laughed, until tears streamed down my face. Then I got to work. I spent the weekend boxing up my belongings, which fit into 3 small boxes, a duffel bag, and a backpack. I didn't have much. They'd made sure of that, but I didn't need much. Harvard was providing everything else. I also spent time crafting my social media post. I wrote and rewrote it dozens of times, making sure every word was perfect. I compiled photos, my acceptance letter, my scholarship award, emails from Harvard, and side-by-side comparisons with my family posts about Jessica. I created a video that detailed the entire story: the stolen trust fund, the forged signatures, the scholarship theft, years of abuse and neglect. I showed the evidence, I showed the timeline, and I ended it with my Harvard acceptance letter filling the screen. I scheduled everything to post on Monday morning at 9 a.m., right when community college classes were supposed to start, right when my family would think I was safely contained in my place. Then I sat back and waited. Monday morning arrived with golden sunshine and crisp late summer air. Perfect weather for new beginnings. I woke up at 5 a.m., too excited to sleep. I dressed carefully in jeans and my only nice then blouse, the one I'd saved for job interviews. I braided my hair and packed my final items. At 7 a.m., I called an Uber. The driver helped me load my boxes into his trunk and asked where I was headed. The airport, I said. I'm going to Boston. College? He asked. Harvard, I said, and hearing it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been before. His face lit up. Congratulations, that's incredible. I smiled. Thank you, it really is. At the airport, I checked my boxes as luggage and made it through security with an hour to spare. I sat at my gate, laptop open, watching the clock. 8:45 a.m. 8:50 a.m. 8:55 a.m. At 8:58, I hovered my cursor over the Post Now button. My heart was racing, my hands shaking slightly. Everything I'd been planning, everything I'd been building toward came down to this moment. 9:00 a.m. I clicked, and then I watched the world explode. The post went live simultaneously across all platforms: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. I'd tagged Patricia in all of them. I'd tagged Jessica. I'd tagged my father's business page. I'd even tagged Jessica's new sorority, State University, and several of Patricia's friends. The video was 17 minutes long and devastating. I started with my Harvard acceptance letter, showing it clearly to the camera. Hi, I'm Mara Chen, I said in the video, my voice steady and clear. And I'm one of 50 students nationwide to receive Harvard's most prestigious full scholarship. This covers all my tuition, room, board, and living expenses for 4 years. But according to my family, I'm going to community college. In fact, they're sure of it. They think I'm sitting in orientation right now, about to start my life as a townie student who couldn't aim higher. They think this because they stole my state scholarship, $15,000 that was awarded to me, and gave it to my stepsister instead. Let me show you how they did it. And then I laid it all out. The forged signatures, the refund check, the spending sprees. I showed bank records I'd obtained through my own detective work, screenshots of Patricia's gleeful texts to her friends about putting Mara's money to better use, and photos of Jessica wearing clothes and accessories that my scholarship had funded. But I didn't stop there. I went back further. I told them about my stolen trust fund, about years of being the family servant while Jessica was pampered, about my straight A's being ignored while Jessica's mediocrity was celebrated, about being moved to a storage room so Jessica could have a bigger bedroom, about cooking, cleaning, and working multiple jobs while Jessica got spa days and shopping trips. I showed my report cards, all A's. Then I showed Jessica's, mostly C's and D's. I showed my volunteer hours, my academic awards, my recommendation letters. And then I showed Patricia's Instagram, the carefully curated lie of the perfect family. I showed her posts about Jessica's brilliance, juxtaposed with my transcripts proving who was actually brilliant. I showed her posts about being a devoted mother to both daughters, while I showed text messages where she called me worthless and told me I was lucky they even kept me around. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, brutal. So, yes, I'm going to college, I said at the end of the video, my Harvard acceptance letter back on screen. I'm going to Harvard on a full scholarship that they knew nothing about because I learned a long time ago that the only person I could count on was myself. And to my family who I know will see this, thank you. Thank you for teaching me that I couldn't rely on you. Thank you for pushing me to be strong enough to survive without you. And thank you for being so predictable that I knew exactly what you'd do with my state scholarship, which is why I never plan to use it anyway. I'm going to Harvard, and you can't touch me anymore. The video ended with me smiling, not a bitter smile, but a genuinely happy one. I posted it at 9:01 a.m. By 9:15, it had 1,000 views. By 9:30, 10,000. By 10:00 a.m., it was viral. My phone started buzzing at 9:07 a.m. Patricia. I declined the call and silenced my phone. By 9:20, I had over 50 missed calls. Patricia, Jessica, my father. Some numbers I didn't recognize, probably their friends. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I watched the comments roll in. This is heartbreaking. I hope she sues them for everything. Harvard! She's going to Harvard and they treated her like this? The karma is going to be beautiful. I literally cannot believe a mother would do this to her child. This woman needs to be investigated. The side-by-side of the report cards, Jessica with C's getting praised while Mara with A's gets ignored. I'm sick. This girl is going places. Harvard is lucky to have her. Someone start a GoFundMe. I want to make sure she has everything she needs for school. I know this family. I live in their town. Everyone needs to know that Patricia Whitmore is exactly as awful as this video shows. That last comment caught my attention. It was from a woman named Carol Hendricks, and she'd added, I've watched Patricia treat Mara like garbage for years at school events. She would ignore Mara completely while fawning over Jessica. It was painful to watch. We all knew, but nobody said anything because Patricia is influential in town. I'm so glad Mara is finally free. Within an hour, other people from town started commenting, sharing their own observations. Teachers who'd seen Patricia dismiss Mara's achievements, neighbors who'd witnessed the unequal treatment, parents who'd been at school events where Mara was ignored. The picture they painted was damning. And then the news outlets picked it up. At 11 a.m., a local news station shared the video. By noon, state news was covering it. By 2 p.m., national outlets were running stories. Teens viral video exposes. Family abuse after Harvard acceptance. Scholarship theft, a mother's betrayal. Harvard student reveals years of family neglect. My video hit 1 million views at 3 p.m. By that time, I was on my flight to Boston, my phone in airplane mode, blissfully disconnected from the firestorm I'd created. I didn't need to watch it anymore. It was done. I'd won. When I landed in Boston at 6 p.m. local time, I had 847 missed calls, 3,472 text messages, and 12,459 social media notifications. I ignored all of it and took a taxi to Harvard. Harvard. The campus was everything I'd dreamed and more. Historic brick buildings, tree-lined paths, students walking with purpose and joy. The air itself felt different here, charged with possibility and the weight of centuries of learning. My dorm was perfect. Small but mine, with a view of the yard. My roommate Priya was already there, and when she saw me, she gasped. Oh my God, you're Mara, the Mara, I saw your video. My heart sank. I'd hoped to escape it, to just be a normal freshman. But then Priya hugged me. You're so brave. What you did, standing up to them like that. I can't even imagine. Everyone in the group chat has been talking about it. You're a legend. I just wanted to tell the truth, I said quietly. Well, you did. And now everyone knows exactly who you are. Brilliant, strong, and on your way to amazing things. She squeezed my hand. Welcome to Harvard, Rumi. We're going to have an incredible 4 years. As she helped me unpack my meager belongings, I finally let myself check some of the messages. Patricia had left dozens of voicemails. The first few were angry. How dare you embarrass this family? Take that video down right now. You ungrateful little bitch. Then they became pleading. Mara, please, we can talk about this. You're ruining our lives over a misunderstanding. Think about what this is doing to Jessica. Then desperate. People are threatening us. Your father might lose clients. Please, you have to fix this. Finally, around 4 p.m., they stopped. The last voicemail was from my father. His voice was flat, defeated. Mara, the police came by. They want to talk to your mother about the trust fund and the scholarship. Our lawyer says it looks bad. Some of Patricia's friends have stopped speaking to her. My firm got hundreds of calls today from people who saw the video. They've asked me to take a leave of absence. A long pause. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know if we can fix this. Another pause. I'm sorry. I should have said that years ago, but I'm saying it now. I'm sorry. The voicemail ended. I deleted it. His apology was too little, too late. He'd had years to protect me and chose not to. His regret now, when his reputation and business were at stake, meant nothing. But other messages were better. My English teacher from high school: I always knew you were destined for greatness. Congratulations, and I'm so sorry we didn't do more to help you. The school counselor: I've been in contact with Harvard to provide any additional documentation they might need about your achievements. I'm also speaking with the state board about what happened with your scholarship. You deserve justice. And then, surprisingly, dozens of messages from strangers offering help. People wanting to send me care packages, gift cards, money. People offering mentorship, career advice, connections. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Elizabeth Chen, my grandmother's sister, my great-aunt. We'd lost touch when I was young after my grandmother died. Mara, I saw what happened. I always suspected Patricia was misusing your trust fund, but I had no proof. I'm so sorry I didn't fight harder for you. Your grandmother would be so proud of you. Harvard! She always knew you were special. Please call me. I want to help. And I have information about your trust fund that you should know. I called her. Aunt Elizabeth answered on the first ring. Her voice was warm and cultured, and hearing it brought back dim memories of childhood visits before Patricia had cut off my mother's entire family. Mara, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. You said you had information about the trust fund? I do. Your grandmother's will was very specific. That money was to be used only for your education, with quarterly reports required. Patricia never filed a single report. I've been trying to get an audit for years, but I didn't have standing to force it. Now, with your video and the police investigation, I do. I've already contacted my lawyer. My breath caught. How much did she steal? $50,000 from the trust, plus interest over the years. With penalties and damages, Patricia could owe you close to $90,000. $90,000, enough to cover anything Harvard didn't, to set me up for life after graduation, to ensure I never had to rely on anyone again. I can't guarantee we'll get it all back, Aunt Elizabeth continued, but we're going to try. And Mara, I want to be in your life again if you'll have me. I should have fought for you when your mother died. I didn't, and I've regretted it every day since. I'd like that, I said softly. We talked for an hour. She told me about my mother, stories I'd never heard, memories of a woman who'd been kind, brilliant, and passionate about education. My mother had been a teacher, Aunt Elizabeth said. She would have been so proud of how I'd advocated for myself. When we hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years, maybe in both my lives. The rest of the week was a blur of orientation activities, meeting new people, and starting classes. My story followed me. Everyone at Harvard had seen the video, but the attention was overwhelmingly positive. People admired what I'd done. They treated me like I was strong, not broken. It was intoxicating, being seen for who I really was. I threw myself into my classes with an intensity that surprised even me. I'd thought I was a good student before, but at Harvard, surrounded by the brightest minds in the country, I discovered I was better than good. I was exceptional. My professors noticed. Within 2 weeks, I'd been invited to join a research project in the economics department. Within a month, I'd been recommended for an exclusive internship program. I was thriving. Meanwhile, back home, my family was imploding. The police investigation into Patricia's theft of my trust fund and scholarship became a criminal case. She was charged with fraud, forgery, and financial abuse of a minor. My father, as an accessory who'd known about the theft and done nothing, faced charges too. Jessica had to withdraw from State U when the scholarship money ran out and she couldn't pay her tuition. Patricia's credit cards were maxed out, and with my father's income in jeopardy, there was no money to support her college dreams. Patricia's social circle abandoned her. Her Instagram, once a monument to her perfect life, became a graveyard of deleted comments and angry messages before she finally deleted the account entirely. The book club kicked her out. The country club revoked her membership. The PTA asked her to resign. She became a pariah, exactly as she'd once made me feel. I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. But the real satisfaction came from something else entirely. 6 weeks into my freshman year, I got an email from the Harvard Financial Aid Office. They'd reviewed my case, the abuse, the theft, the circumstances of my childhood, and decided to increase my scholarship package. In addition to full tuition and room and board, they were providing me with a $15,000 annual stipend for personal expenses and academic enrichment. $15,000. The exact amount Patricia had stolen. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of poetic justice. I used part of the money to buy myself a new laptop, new clothes, and all the textbooks I needed without worrying about cost. The rest I saved, building a security fund so I would never be vulnerable again. And then, in November, Aunt Elizabeth called with news. We won the civil suit. Patricia has been ordered to repay the full trust fund plus damages, $93,000. Your father liquidated some assets to cover his share of their liability. The money will be transferred to a new account in your name only by the end of the month. I sat down hard on my dorm bed. $93,000? Plus the criminal penalties she'll face. The judge was very sympathetic to your case, especially after the video. He called her actions morally reprehensible and a violation of the most basic parental duties. What about Jessica? I asked, surprised by my own curiosity. Living at home, working retail, she tried to re-enroll at a community college, but apparently she's struggling without someone to do her work for her. Aunt Elizabeth paused. She called me, actually, asked if I would help pay for her school since I was helping you. What did you say? I told her that I help family members who show character and integrity. Then I hung up. I smiled. Thank you for everything. You earned it all, sweetheart. Every bit of it. My first semester at Harvard ended with a 3.97 GPA, 1 A- in a notoriously difficult statistics class that even the professor said was exceptional for a freshman. I made Dean's List. I was invited to join 2 honor societies. I'd made genuine friends who valued me for my mind and my character, not for what I could do for them. I went home with Priya for winter break to California, where her warm, chaotic, loving family welcomed me like I'd always belonged. Her parents were horrified when they heard my story and immediately insisted I spend every break with them unless I had other plans. No child should feel unwanted, Priya's mother said fiercely, hugging me tight. You're part of our family now. It was the first time in years I'd felt like I had a family at all. I didn't go back to Illinois. I had no reason to. Patricia and my father sent a Christmas card, a generic, impersonal thing clearly chosen to avoid any appearance of actual sentiment. Inside, my father had written, "We hope you're doing well. We're proud of your accomplishments." Too little. Too late. Too meaningless. I threw it away. Jessica sent a Facebook message. I know you hate us, but this has been really hard on me too. I didn't ask Mom to steal your money. Can't we just move past this? I read it twice, looking for any hint of actual remorse or understanding. There was none. Just self-pity and a desire for me to absolve her so she could feel better. I didn't respond. She'd stood by and benefited from my abuse for years. She'd worn clothes my money bought while sneering at me. She'd enjoyed her position as the golden child while I was treated like trash. She didn't get my forgiveness just because she was facing consequences now. Second semester brought new opportunities. I landed a summer internship at a prestigious financial firm in New York, one of only 3 freshmen selected nationwide. I joined the Harvard Investment Association and quickly became known for my uncanny ability to predict market trends. I also started dating someone, a sweet, earnest sophomore named Marcus, who treated me like I was precious. After years of being invisible, being seen and valued by someone kind and genuine felt like a revelation. My life was full in ways I'd never imagined possible. In March, I got a letter from the Illinois State Scholarship Board. They'd completed their investigation into Patricia's fraud and had permanently banned her from acting as a financial representative for any scholarship recipient. They'd also added my case to their training materials as an example of scholarship fraud, helping to prevent future students from suffering the same fate. My story was literally being used to protect other people. The thought made me cry. Good tears for once. And then, in April, something unexpected happened. Jessica called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. What do you want, Jessica? Her voice was small, nothing like the confident sneer I remembered. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I waited. I'd learned that silence was the best response to empty apologies. I mean it, she continued. I've been going to therapy, court ordered because of the scholarship thing, and my therapist has been making me confront some stuff about how I treated you, about how mom treated you, and how I just went along with it, benefited from it. Okay, I said neutrally. I was jealous of you, she said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. You were so smart, and everything came easy to you, and I wasn't. Mom knew that. She knew I couldn't compete with you fairly, so she made sure you were held back. And I let her. I encouraged her. You did more than let her, Jessica. You actively participated. You mocked me. You took my things. You watched her steal from me and said nothing. I know, her voice broke. I know, and I can't take it back. I can't undo any of it. But I need you to know that I understand now. What we did to you, it was evil, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. I took a breath. What do you want from me, Jessica? Forgiveness? Absolution? No, I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. Mom is exactly as terrible as you said. Dad is weak and complicit. And I was a bully who benefited from your pain. Okay, thank you for saying that. A long pause. Are you happy at Harvard? Yes, I said simply. I'm very happy. Good, you deserve it. She hesitated. I won't bother you again. I just needed to say it once. She hung up. I sat with the phone in my hand, processing. It was the first genuine apology I'd received from any of them, and while it didn't undo the damage, it felt like closing a chapter. Jessica would have to live with what she'd done. That was her burden now, not mine. Summer came, and with it, my internship in New York. I spent 3 months working alongside some of the brightest financial minds in the country, learning more than I'd thought possible. My supervisors were impressed enough to offer me a guaranteed position after graduation if I wanted it. 4 years out, and I already had job security at one of the top firms in the world. I also spent time with Aunt Elizabeth, who lived in Connecticut. We had dinner every Sunday, slowly rebuilding the family connection that Patricia had severed. She told me stories about my mother and grandmother, gave me family photos I'd never seen, and treated me with the love I'd been missing my whole life. Your grandmother would be so proud, she said one evening, looking at me with tears in her eyes. She always said you had her spirit, fierce and brilliant and unstoppable. Wish I'd known her better, I said. You carry her with you, in your strength, your intelligence, your refusal to be broken. She's with you always. In August, just before my sophomore year started, I got one final piece of news. Patricia had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud and financial abuse. My father had avoided prison by cooperating with the investigation and paying full restitution, but his career was effectively over. Their house, the house I'd grown up in, the house where I'd been invisible, was being sold to pay legal fees. Jessica was living with Patricia's mother in Florida, working at a call center and taking online community college classes. They'd lost everything, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sadness, just a distant, detached acknowledgement that justice had been served. They were no longer part of my story. I returned to Harvard for my sophomore year with a confidence I'd never had before. I'd survived the worst thing that could happen to me, twice if you counted both lives, and I'd come out stronger. I threw myself into my studies with renewed vigor. I joined more clubs, took on leadership positions, started mentoring incoming freshmen who came from difficult backgrounds. I used my story not as a shield but as a bridge, helping others who'd faced similar struggles. My video, which had started as an act of revenge and self-protection, became something more, a rallying cry for other students facing family financial abuse. I did interviews with news outlets about scholarship fraud and family exploitation. I worked with advocacy groups to strengthen protections for students whose families tried to steal their educational funds. I turned my pain into purpose, and I thrived. By the end of sophomore year, I had a 3.96 cumulative GPA, multiple job offers for future internships, and a network of mentors and friends who believed in me. I'd won awards for my academic work and my advocacy. I'd been profiled in the Harvard Crimson as an example of resilience and excellence. I was exactly who I'd always had the potential to be, finally free to reach for it. Marcus and I were still together, planning a summer trip to Europe that I could actually afford thanks to my internship savings and the trust fund recovery. Priya and I were living together again, this time in a cozy on-campus apartment. Life was good, better than good. It was everything I dreamed of in my first life while dying in that restaurant kitchen, exhausted and alone. On the 5-year anniversary of my first life's death, a date only I knew, a private memorial for the girl I'd been, I went to the Harvard Memorial Church and sat in the quiet peace. I thought about that other Mara, the one who'd died believing she was worthless, the one who'd never known her own strength, the one who'd let them break her spirit before her body gave out. I mourned her, not with sadness but with gratitude, because that Mara's suffering had taught this Mara how to survive. Her death had given me the gift of foreknowledge, of second chances, of unshakable determination. She'd saved me by showing me what would happen if I didn't save myself. "Thank you," I whispered to the empty church, to the universe, to whatever cosmic force had given me another chance. "Thank you for letting me live." And then I left the church and walked back into the sunshine, into my beautiful, hard-won life, into my future that stretched ahead bright and limitless. By junior year, I was taking graduate-level economics courses and working as a research assistant for a professor who was considered one of the foremost experts in behavioral economics. My undergraduate thesis was already being discussed as potentially publishable, a rare honor for someone who hadn't even graduated yet. I spent the summer before senior year interning at the Federal Reserve, working on policy analysis that would affect millions of people. I was finally using my gifts to make a real difference in the world. Senior year arrived like a victory lap. I applied to graduate programs, Harvard, MIT, Stanford, and was accepted to all of them with full funding. I won the Harvard Economics Department's most prestigious undergraduate award. I gave a speech at a financial aid symposium about scholarship fraud that led to new legislation in 3 states. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd survived, had led to this. In the spring of my senior year, I got an unexpected email. It was from my father. "Mara, I know you probably won't read this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm dying. Stage 4 cancer. I have a few months at most." I stared at the screen, feeling nothing. No grief, no sadness, no rush to his bedside. The email continued. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I failed you in every way a father can fail a child. I chose comfort over your well-being. I chose Patricia over you. I chose to be weak when you needed me to be strong. I don't expect you to come see me. I don't expect you to care, but I need you to know that my greatest regret is losing you. Not the way I lost you, that was my own doing, but that I lost you at all. You were always the best thing in my life, even when I didn't act like it. I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to be, but I am. You became extraordinary despite me, not because of me. You're everything I should have helped you become, and you did it alone. I'm sorry, Mara. For everything. I love you. I always did, even when I didn't show it." The email ended. I read it 3 times. Then I closed my laptop and went to class. I didn't respond. I didn't go see him. I didn't call. I'd learned the hard way that love without action is meaningless, that words without protection, support, and sacrifice are just air. He'd had 18 years to be my father. He'd chosen not to be. His deathbed regrets were his to carry, not mine to absolve. 2 weeks. Later, I got another email from my father's lawyer. He'd died. He'd left me a letter and a small inheritance, $20,000 from a life insurance policy I hadn't known about. The letter was more of the same. Apologies, regrets, expressions of love that felt hollow after years of neglect. But at the end, he'd written something that surprised me. "Your mother would be so proud of you. She always said you had her fire. She was right. I wish I'd been strong enough to protect that fire instead of letting Patricia try to extinguish it. I hope you use this money to do something that makes you happy. It's the least I can do, and it's far less than you deserve." I deposited the check into my savings account. I didn't cry. I didn't feel grief or closure. I just felt tired. Tired of carrying the weight of their failures, tired of being defined by what they'd done to me. So I decided to let it go. Not forgiveness exactly, but release. They'd taken enough of my life. I wasn't giving them any more. I graduated from Harvard in May, summa cum laude, with dual degrees in economics and applied mathematics. I gave a speech at the senior celebration about resilience and self-advocacy, about the importance of believing in yourself when no one else will. The crowd gave me a standing ovation. Aunt Elizabeth was there, crying happy tears. Priya was there with her whole family cheering loudly. Marcus was there, having flown in from his new job in San Francisco. I looked out at the crowd of people who loved me, who believed in me, who'd supported me, and I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. This moment, this life, this future was what I'd been fighting for. After graduation, I took a gap year before starting my PhD at MIT. I used the time to write a book about my experience, about family financial abuse and how to protect yourself, about surviving narcissistic family dynamics and building your own success. It was published by a major press and became a bestseller. I used the advance to start a nonprofit that provided legal support and resources to students facing scholarship fraud and family financial exploitation. I called it the Second Chance Foundation, because everyone deserved a second chance to build the life they wanted. 5 years after my rebirth, 10 years after my first life's death, I stood in my corner office in New York City looking out over the skyline. I was Dr. Mara Chen now, with a PhD in economics from MIT and a tenure-track position at Columbia. I'd published papers that changed how we thought about financial abuse and family wealth dynamics. I'd testified before Congress about scholarship fraud. I'd helped hundreds of students through my nonprofit. I was engaged to Marcus, planning a wedding that would be filled with people I loved and who loved me back. I had everything I'd ever wanted, and none of it had been given to me. I'd earned every single piece of it. On my desk was a framed photo, not of my wedding planning, not of my graduation, but of my Harvard acceptance letter. The letter that had saved my life, the letter that had been the first step toward freedom. I looked at it every day to remind myself of how far I'd come. My phone buzzed. A text from Aunt Elizabeth. Lunch next week? I want to hear about the new research project. I smiled and replied yes. Then another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Sarah. I saw your TED Talk about financial abuse, and it gave me the courage to leave my family and go to college. I just got accepted to my dream school. Thank you for telling your story. You saved my life. I read it twice, feeling tears prick my eyes. This was why I'd shared everything, why I'd been so public with my pain, not for revenge, that had just been the catalyst, but for this. For the people who needed to know they weren't alone, that survival was possible, that they could build something beautiful from the ashes of their trauma. I typed back my, "Congratulations! You saved your own life by being brave enough to leave. I'm so proud of you. If you need anything, resources, advice, just someone to talk to, I'm here." I hit send and turned back to the window, watching the city sparkle in the afternoon sun. In my first life, I'd died alone, exhausted, believing I was nothing. In this life, I was everything I'd ever had the potential to be. And every single day, I made sure that other people knew they could be everything too. 10 more years passed in a blur of achievement and joy. I became a full professor at Columbia, one of the youngest in the department's history. My research on economic inequality and family wealth transfer was cited in policy decisions at the federal level. My nonprofit grew to serve thousands of students every year, with chapters at universities across the country. Marcus and I built a life together that was everything a partnership should be: equal, supportive, filled with laughter and love. We had 2 children, both of whom I made sure knew they were valued, seen, and loved every single day. I never heard from Patricia after she got out of prison. She'd moved somewhere far away and faded into obscurity. Jessica sent a card when my first child was born, a generic congratulations with no return address. I didn't respond. They were ghosts of my past, powerless and irrelevant. Aunt Elizabeth remained a constant presence in my life until she passed away peacefully at 92, surrounded by family, including me and my children, who she'd doted on shamelessly. I named my daughter Elizabeth, after her and after my mother. My son I named James, after my maternal grandfather, reclaiming the family line that Patricia had tried to sever. My children would grow up knowing they came from strength, resilience, and love. They would never question their worth. On the 20th anniversary of my rebirth, I did something I'd never done before. I drove back to Illinois. Not to the house where I'd grown up. That had been sold years ago. Not to see my family, I had no desire to, but to the cemetery where my mother was buried. I stood at her grave with flowers in hand, looking at the simple headstone. Catherine Chen, beloved mother and teacher. "Hi, Mom," I said softly. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I wanted to tell you, I made it. I survived. I built something beautiful from all the pain, and I'm happy, really, truly happy. I have children who I love with everything in me. I have a career that matters. I have people who value me. I have the life you would have wanted for me. Thank you for giving me the foundation, the love you gave me before you died, the values you instilled. It was enough to carry me through everything that came after." I placed the flowers on the grave and stood there for a long moment, feeling the warm sun on my face. Then I walked back to my car where my husband and children were waiting, and I drove toward the future. My future, built on my terms, filled with people who loved me. The past had no hold on me anymore. I was free. And that, more than any revenge, more than any achievement, was the greatest victory of all.